Okay, let's take a look at this quadratic here. Remember, this is called a parabola because it's the name of the quadratic. What the function looks like. It looks like a U. Okay, this one's opening upward. So if you want to, you can even draw the arrows so that you know which way it's opening. Okay, so let's try to answer some of these questions. So because it's opening upwards, I know that there's a vertex down here at the bottom. So that means it's going to be a minimum. And this vertex is a little hard to tell where it's at, but we're just going to kind of guesstimate. So we're going to say that it's right here in the middle of 0 and 1. So that's 0.5, comma. And then we went down about 6, let's just call it 6.5, negative 6.5. Just because I can't really tell where it's at. It might be at negative 6.25 maybe. So let's write it here, 0.5 and negative 6.5 or negative 6.25. Okay, we're just guesstimating. Now, if I draw the axis of symmetry, okay, remember it has to go through the middle of the parabola, which would go through the vertex. So let me draw it. I'm going to change colors and I'm going to draw my imaginary axis of symmetry. So it's going right here through 0.5. Remember, it's always the x. So x equals 0.5. Okay, pretty easy. Now, it asks for the number of roots. How many roots do you see on here? Remember, roots are the x-intercepts. Okay, it's where it crosses on the x-axis. Right here, this red line. So how many do you see? How many times does it cross the x-axis? It has 2 roots. Okay, now there's another name for roots. There's different names for roots, so I really want to make sure you guys write this down. We're going to write down rocks, R-O-X-S, rocks. Okay, it's an acronym and it stands for, the R is for roots, the O is for zeros. It's like a 0, right? The letter, it's not a letter, it's a number, the number 0. X is for x-intercepts. Okay, x-intercepts, and S is for solutions. Okay, so all of these mean the same thing. Roots mean the same thing. It's the same thing as zeros, x-intercepts, solutions. So sometimes they're going to ask you how many zeros are there? 2. 1, 2. Sometimes they're going to ask you how many roots are there? 2. How many x-intercepts are there? 2. 1, 2. How many solutions are there? 2. They all mean the same thing. So it doesn't matter how they ask it, they're asking for the same thing. So right here, my roots, zeros, x-intercepts, and solutions are at -2 and 3. So this is how you write it. You write it -2, 0 and 3, 0. Okay, this is -2, 0. And this one is 3, 0. Okay, so let's move on to the next problem. We're going to do the exact same thing, okay? So I'm just going to erase all of this. So it's asking for a maximum or a minimum. Remember, this opens which way? How is it opening? Okay, and if it's since it's opening upward, it has a minimum, a lowest point. Okay, and that lowest point is at 1, 0. So the vertex is at 1, 0, and it is a minimum. Okay, also we can talk about the A. If it opens upward, this is a positive quadratic. That means the A has to be positive. Okay, remember we talked about that the other day. Now, let's draw our axis of symmetry. Remember, axis of symmetry goes through the vertex. So it cuts it right down the middle, and it's an imaginary line. So that means it goes through the x at 1. So remember, it always has to be x equals, and it goes through 1, so it's x equals 1. Now, here's a trick question. How many roots are there? How many times does it cross this line or touch this line? Only one time, right here. It touches the x-axis one time. So it has one root. It only has one. And remember, rocks, roots, zeros, x-intercepts, solutions all mean the same thing. And my solution, my root, is at 1, 0. Hey, the root is the same thing as the vertex. So here's a trick question. Here's a cool thing for you to know. When the vertex is the same thing as the root, when the vertex is on the x-axis, that means it's only going to have one solution, one root, okay? One x-intercept and 1, 0. Okay, let's do the next one. Let's go down over here. How is this one opening? Okay, this parabola opens downward. That means it has a maximum point, right? Because that's the highest point that it's going to go to. So it's a maximum. And we know that the maximum or the minimum is the vertex. So right here, again, we're going to guesstimate. So this looks like 0.5 and up at 2.5 or 2.25, whatever you want to call this. Let's call it 2.25. So 0.5 and 2.25 or 2.5. Okay. The next one says draw the axis of symmetry. So remember, the axis of symmetry goes through the vertex. Okay, and it goes right here through in between 0 and 1. Right, it crosses the x-axis in between 0 and 1. So that's 0.5. And remember, it always has to start with x equals 0.5. Okay? How many roots are there? How many roots? How many zeros? How many x-intercepts? How many solutions do you see here? 1, 2. Remember, it has to cross the x-axis. This is the x-axis, and it crosses it 2 times. So there is 2 roots, 2 zeros, 2 x-intercepts, 2 solutions. And those are at 2, 0, and -1, 0. Okay, so 2, 0, and -1, 0. All right, let's do one more. Let's see if you can answer these by yourself. Vertex, is it a maximum or a minimum? Okay, this is a minimum. It is the lowest point on the parabola because this opens upward. And that point is at -1, 1. Okay, let's draw the axis of symmetry. Remember, it has to go through the middle of the parabola, which goes through the vertex. And it's going right there at -1. And remember, it always has to start with x equals, and it's at -1. Now, here is a trick question. How many roots does this have? How many x-intercepts do you see? How many times does it cross or touch this line right here, the x-axis? How many times? 0. So if there's no roots, then you don't have to put anything here. There is no roots, none. Okay?